put up the agenda. Thank you. This is the start of the Black Liberation Caucus meeting on Sunday, December 18th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. It appears that all of us on the call today are in the Eastern Time Zone. So everybody here was on time. And what we have on the screen now is the meeting agenda. And because I'm using my phone, I will ask George Friday to read the meeting agenda for today. Please, George.
Our agenda is check-in, your name, branch, and one good thing. 1 minute each or less. The review of the basis of political agreement, the BLC strategy chart, member recruitment. Our guest, Afia Ungaza, her Geneva report back. A reparations update from Cobra. AFRICOM webinar, which is next Tuesday. The EDAC BLC dialogue series, announcements, and our next meeting.
Thank you, George. Well, let me just confirm with Afia. Does this work for her? We do want you to hear how we're organized, Afia, before we hear your report back, which also will give a little time to make sure as many people as possible are here to hear your report back. So that may be about 20 minutes into this first half hour. Does that work okay for you with your time, Afia? Need you to say something, Afia.
I've allocated 45 minutes for this. I have another report back immediately following this at 5 o'clock. So as soon as you can get to me, it's would be helpful.
Well, that would work perfectly because we will definitely be finished with your part long before 5 o'clock because we have a hard stop at 5:30. So I'll start with introductions for the sake of the recording. My name is Teresa Alameen, and I am the organizer of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom based in Columbus, Georgia. And my one good thing is that as a senior and Social Security beneficiary, I just got notice that our increase for this year is the largest I can remember, is 8.7%, which puts me over $2,300. And after Medicare and everything is taken out, I'm getting more in my old age than I've ever gotten before. So that's my one good thing. I will call on Donna Peel for her name, branch, and her one good thing. Donna, speak.
Hello, I'm Donna Peel, Cape Cod WILF convener and new chair of Advancing Human Rights umbrella committee. And my one good thing is that I finally got a wreath on the door today. So I'm happy.
Wonderful. Shantae McLaughlin.
Hello, y'all. My name is Shantae McLaughlin, and I'm an organizer from the Metro Atlanta branch. And my one good thing is I'm pulling up at home. I've been at a children's holiday event that was African themed. So we had drummers and African food and folklore, and it was a beautiful event. So that's the one good thing.
Oh, that sounds great. Stacy Friday, who's there with George Friday, if you're filling up to it, your name, your branch, and your one good thing.
Hi, my name is Stacy
Oh,
Friday.
I can barely hear her, George. So help her, George. Is she close enough to the microphone?
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh,
Can you
that's
hear-
much better. Thank you, Stacy.
You're very welcome. Hi, my name is Stacy Friday. I'm from the Southern Piedmont branch here in North Carolina, and good thing is I'm George's Friday's sister, which is awesome.
Well, I can say that's certainly true. And you're there right with her. So, George Friday, if you could introduce yourself and your one good thing.
Hey there. George here, one Southern Piedmont branch in North Carolina. My one good thing is I only have a few more days before I get a week off from work. And I'm going to the country where there may not even be Wi-Fi often, and often there's not. So I'll be playing cards, reading books, and hanging out. I'm psyched.
That's the plan. Okay, Daryl Moak, your name, branch, and one good thing.
Hey, I am Daryl, and I am in the Washington, D.C. branch. One good thing is that I finally did some work on my dissertation last week. Not enough, but better than none that hadn't been done in like the last 6 or 7 months. So that's my one good thing.
Okay. Now, Afia is our guest speaker, and I don't know that I know she's not in a branch, and I'm not sure if she's a member of Will, but if she could just give her name and anything she wants to tell us about her organization and her one good thing. So, Afia, you're the last one to give the one good thing for today.
My name is Afia Wangaza. I'm the founder director of the Malcolm X Center for Self-Determination and WMXP Community Radio. And my one good thing is having had the opportunity to attend and participate in the first session of the UN's Permanent Forum of People of African Descent in Geneva, Switzerland.
Oh, thank you. And we're looking forward to hearing all about that. So, George, if you could put up the BOPA. Oh, you're looking beautiful, Afia. I wish I could get my camera on. I might be able to. So, George, you put up the BOPA, right? So, George, would you do us the pleasure of reading the BOPA, saying when we got organized as the Black Liberation Caucus?
Certainly. This is our basis of political agreement. We found it in May 22nd of 2021. Decision-making is by consensus, addressing questions, concerns, and objections. There's a steering committee of 2 representatives of African descent from each branch and a monthly steering committee meeting. This is our monthly meeting. Our areas of work are reparations, free all political prisoners, criminal justice reform, end mass incarceration, ending voter suppression, free Palestine solidarity, anti-racist transformation of Wilf US, solidarity with other oppressed people of color, universal health care for all,
Have the strawberry salad.
Medicare for
You still
all,
have the strawberry salad.
immigration justice. That's our book.
Thank you. George, I think on the BOPA, this is an older version because I think we added AFRICOM out of Africa as an area of work, either at our last meeting or the meeting before that. So hopefully you will find the latest version. But I do know that we made a point to add AFRICOM out of Africa. For the sake of memory, Donna, Shante, and others. Do you recall that that was done? I don't know who was at the last meeting, but George, do you recall
I
that to be true?
absolutely recall that. That's why I was confused when I said no NATO, but AFRICOM out of Africa is what it was. And it is locked in the dead laptop to be recovered soon.
I remember it too.
Well, thank you. So for the benefit of Afia and others who missed the last meeting, that's our basis of political agreement and the areas of work we're committed to. And shamelessly, I hope that our sister Afia will join and maybe start the branch in Greenville. We'll have to figure out a way to make that happen. But at any rate, we would be honored if she would join. And I'm willing to give you a membership, Sister Afia. The membership dues are just $35 a year. And Wealth members do a lot of international travel. And so it would be great because the International Secretariat is actually based in Geneva, Switzerland. I want to give you a membership for Kwanzaa. Maybe earlier than Kwanzaa. But Thank you. So, George, if we could move on to the Black Liberation Caucus strategy chart. Now, Sister Afia, we have a, who did we lose? We lost Shante. So we have a 3-year strategy, which is focused on the anti-racism transformation of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. WILF was founded in 1915, so it's 107 plus years old. And throughout its history, WILF has been overwhelmingly white and actually discriminatory towards Black women. And the reason we call our branch the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia, is because when Fannie Lou Hamer was a member with Angela Davis and lots of other folks who joined during the Vietnam era to stand up to ending the Vietnam War, Shirley Chisholm, Eartha Kitt, lots of people were members. Coretta Scott King is a famous member they like to talk about a lot, but Alice Walker and all of those folks, and I think most of them who are still living are probably still members of WILF. And as we know, Fannie Lou Hamer died at the age of 60 due to her poor health, cancer, and she had lived only 60 years. She was born in 1917 and died in 1977. So we're very proud to have the branch in Columbus named for Fannie Lou Hamer. So George, on the strategy chart, could you read out the goals? Because by 4:30, we want to be starting with Afia because she's going to speak for 10 minutes, and then we'll have time for a little Q&A for Afia before she has to leave us. So George, could you please read the goals of our 3-year strategy?
Our goals for July 2022 to June 2023 are to have 150 new members in 5 regions: the Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, Northwest, and Midwest. To have reparation ordinances in 10 branch cities. And our 8 Advancing Human Rights UN subcommittee of subcommittee of UN decade reparations is the key or primary mover of that work. Also a goal, 10 branches participate in anti-racism transformation, or ART, which is on our agenda for later today. And to begin, the BLC EDAC dialogue series.
Well, we started the 3-year strategy in January of this year, and our goal was to get 100 new members by June of 2022, and we definitely met that goal. We've created a culture of recruitment inside of WILF, and so we've started several branches since March of 2021, when the Fannie Lou Hamer branch started. In May, the Metro Atlanta branch and the Triad branch kicked off. The Triad branch divided into two. So we have the Triad branch and the Southern Piedmont branch. So we've created, the president of WILF told me a week ago.
We can't hear you, Teresa.
There's a member of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch calling me, and I'll try to stop and call her when Afia is speaking. But for now, suffice it to say that we have created more branches in less than 2 years than have been created in the previous 5 years, I was told. And so we've encouraged the Membership Development Committee to also create branches. So there was a branch established in Kentucky and also one restarted in Chicago in the last few months. So WILF is growing, while on the other hand, it's declining in some of the historic branches that have been around for 50 years or more. The members have become quite elderly, so many of those branches are in decline. But we won't go through the whole chart, but we have a number of strategic objectives. And I will say, George, as a kind of evaluation, we have two basic priorities for this 3-year strategy. One is membership recruitment, which I'm in charge of, and the anti-racism transformation work, which George was in charge of. But since she wasn't able to do anything on it in this year, since we started the plan, I have organized the BLC and the European Descent Allies Caucus dialogue series, which will take the place of the initial plan to do the anti-racism transformation. And we will be discussing this more in January. But today we will talk just a little bit about the BLC EDAC series and how we're going to do our first meeting in January. So that's the 3-year strategy of here. So George is the next item on the agenda. Membership recruitment, we will move that down on the agenda, and we'll go with listening to beautiful Afia. I can't get over how good you look, sister. So we're going to go with Afia's report now, and we'll do the membership recruitment after Afia has to go. Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
briefly, and my apologies, Afia. I'm the timekeeper. So when you're
Okay.
at 5 minutes, you'll see my happy face and that you're at 5 minutes. And then when you're at 2
Okay.
minutes, I'll let you know you've got 2 minutes. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. I want to first express my appreciation for this opportunity, and secondly, to acknowledge Will's support of the reparations movement in 2001, which led the campaign under the leadership of the December 12th movement and the World Conference Against Racism, resulting in the Durban Declaration and Program of Action, which called for reparations for crimes against humanity, those crimes being colonialism, slavery, apartheid, and genocide. And that declaring that there is no statute of limitations. So I recognize Will having a reasonable and practical standing in the field and the issues that I'm called to discuss here. The first session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, my subtitle is "The United States and the Colonizers Are at It Again." The Permanent Forum on People of African Descent is the United States and other European countries, former colonizers who control today's Bandung-like global freedom movement. Now, evidenced by the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. The forum as presently constituted is a mechanism designed to waylay, blunt, and bury the DDPA with hand-picked gatekeepers and the racist slur of anti-Semitism. In Durban, the world governments and civil society reached a consensus and issued the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. The world declared colonialism, slavery, apartheid, and genocide crimes against humanity without a statute of limitations and liable for reparations. In 2001, when the conference was held, the United States, led by then Secretary of State Colin Powell, walked out of the Durban World Conference Against Racism. The US and other European countries, former colonizers, worked to prevent the global consensus that was reached, and having failed, have continued to work to undermine and bury it. The forum is composed of 10 members, 5 nominated by states and 5 by the President of the Human Rights Council, purportedly in consultation with civil society. While the US described how it pressured governments to vote for its pick, Justin Hansford, little or nothing else is known about the rest's appointment. We note that while the president of the Human Rights Council was to consult with civil society, and we have yet to find a consultee, it is different from the process used with the establishment of indigenous peoples, where indigenous peoples were specifically consulted. The United States described, the United States described how it pressured governments into picking Justin Hanford. The forum is located in Geneva in the office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights instead of the more accessible New York and under the more appropriate Economic and Social Council. The chair, S.B. Campbell Barr, is a former vice president of Costa Rica, one of the world's smallest countries, and even smaller number of African people of African descent, little more than 4,000, including quote unquote mixed race. Vice chair is Pastor Elias Morello Martinez of Colombia, lawyer with several past government posts. Colombia is second in geographical size to Brazil, with a Black population of 9.34%, including quote unquote mulatto, Razel, and Plancaros. The rapporteur is Michael N. McCutcheon, a Swede, mixed race, academic, and activist. As of 2016, there are only 110,758 citizens of African nations residing in Sweden. Justin Hanford, USA member representative, operating as the director of Howard University Thurgood Marshall School of Civil Rights Center, dismissed the DDPA, saying, "I was only 16 years old when it was written." He reportedly believes he can get a better deal. I reprimanded him for trying to gaslight me when the chair refused to take floor responses to McCutcheon's attempt to limit DDPA relevance. Forum participants in person and virtual were urged to read the DDPA, admonished not to let fancy, obscure language, lack of information, age, experience, and a short-term promise of an immediate bowl of porridge cause us to betray our peoples. All were challenged to fully claim, affirm, and assert the Durban Declaration and program of action as our human right of self-determination. I reminded that the Durban Declaration and Program of Action is the heart and soul of the forum. Without the DDPA, the forum is nothing more than a free trip and a talk fest. The Durban Declaration and Program Action is our lifeline and that of generations unborn. They were further admonished to hold on to it and engaged in the chant of Black Power, Black is beautiful, all power to the people. The crowd roared and gave a standing ovation. The call for fidelity to the DDPA rang out through the remaining 3 days. The DDPA, the Durban Declaration and Program of Action, is the cornerstone of the modern global human rights struggle for people of African descent and other oppressed peoples. It is important to recognize that it reached a consensus, not just an agreement, but a consensus of more than 100 nations from around the world, of differing perspectives, differing positions, that came together and put together a plan of action that is our guidepost, our framework for future action, and it covers the full spectrum of areas by which we are oppressed and against which we may work to dismantle the global system of white supremacy. Thank you. I'm prepared to answer any questions or respond to any questions.
There aren't any questions in the chat presently.
I believe that Afia came in under 10 minutes. Is that correct, George?
Yes, she did. There's about 96 seconds left.
Excellent. She's a very professional speaker. I would like to acknowledge our sister and comrade, Lucy Murphy, who has joined the meeting. We lost Shante McLaughlin. We really have to talk about that Metro Atlanta branch. But Sister Lucy, when we started, we introduced ourselves and told one good thing. And since I know you haven't been well, I think one of your good things is hopefully you're feeling better. So for the record of the meeting, Sister Lucy, would you introduce yourself?
Oh.
Thank you, Teresa. Lucy Murphy, the organizer for the DMV branch of WILF, and also a member of the Coalition to Expose COINTELPRO, which just had a webinar talking about the effects of COINTELPRO on the families of people who have been unjustly imprisoned and harassed by the FBI.
And
I'll-
what's your one good thing, sister? We ask everybody to tell us one good thing that's happened to them recently.
Some friends brought me my favorite fruits.
Well, that sounds good. Well, I know you weren't feeling well on Thursday, and I'm so glad to see you because that means you're feeling better. So we just listened to Sister Ophelia's report back from Geneva. And the one question I have for Sister Ophelia, and just so people know, Sister Ophelia and I were both in SNCC when we were youngsters, and she's got a year or two on me, but nevertheless, that SNCC experience, I think, has shaped so many folks like Afia and me and Nellie Hester Bailey and so many other sisters that I can think of. But it was so important for Afia to be in Geneva. And I'd like her to say, if she doesn't mind, how she was able to make that trip because she clearly was representing the whole Black liberation movement, and she is a human rights lawyer, which she did not mention. So, Sister Afia from Greenville, South Carolina, how did it happen that you were able to go all the way across the waters to Geneva to this historic event?
We did fundraising in order to do that. I'm surprised that you didn't get a request, but we did fundraising.
Well, I certainly didn't, and I would have chipped in, but it's good. And so, can you say a little bit about what other delegations were there from the U.S., if any?
There were a number of collectives, one out of Chicago, and I think they call themselves the Working Group. It was led by a sister, Imara Emery, if my memory serves me correctly. And then there was a second one called the International, it was ICPAD. So I think it was the International Coalition for People of African Descent. And that was a combination of people from Colombia and the United States. It wasn't exclusively Colombians in the United States, although it was heavily populated by folks from Colombia. There was a third delegation. I believe it would be accurate to say that, representing Cobra. And of course, their function was to continue to press successfully, I might add, the call for reparations, which is one of the elements of the DDPA. There were representatives from small individuals representing various other organizations. One was the National Conference of Black Lawyers and the National Lawyers Guild. I think that would probably be the full extent of U.S. participation and representation. I, of course, was representing
1 minute, Afia.
the Malcolm X Center for Self-Determination and the Black Alliance for Peace.
Well, George, we want to be a little bit flexible on the time for this portion. Afia has to leave in a couple of minutes, but I think it's important that we hear exactly what the Black Liberation Movement presence was at the meeting. Are there any questions for Afia from anyone else before I ask my last question of Afia? So I don't want to take up all the question time. Daryl, Lucy, Donna, George, Stacy, do you have any questions for Afia?
I don't have any questions, but I do have some, I found some of the information quite interesting. Justin Hansford is here in Washington, D.C. at Howard University, and he and I are members of a committee that the ACLU, the local ACLU, has studying the issue of surveillance, surveillance of civilians, because, you know, we have all these cameras and ways of tapping people's phones and, you know, so the ACLU is very interested in some kind of legislation that would limit the government's power to intrude on people's privacy. And Justin Hansford is part of that. I also heard the name Epsie Campbell Barr, who was the, maybe it still is, the vice president, first Black woman vice president of Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a very interesting country. It is maybe the only country in this hemisphere that has decided not to have a standing army. And so they don't put their money into the military the way we just put, I don't know, 800, 900 billion dollars into the military. They put their money into education and healthcare. Imagine that. And they have one of the most literate populations. They have an English-speaking Black population, which Epsie Campbell Barr comes with, but actually they're bilingual. They speak English and Spanish. But I think it would be interesting to study them because we need to lower our military expenditures and spend more money on our people. I also found it interesting that Colombia was well represented. I didn't recognize any of the names of the people from Colombia, but I do know that the current ambassador to the United States from Colombia is a well-known Afro-Colombian who was the former governor of Chocó, which is a province or a state of Colombia that is sometimes referred to as Little Africa because it is a resource-rich, almost totally undeveloped, and 90% African population. He was an exile here in the United States because his family was threatened by the violence in Colombia, which, you may know that Colombia has had a civil war going on for about 60 years.
Sister Lucy,
Yes.
we need to stop you there.
Okay.
Sister Afia has another meeting at 5, and so we want to make sure that we get this last question in. Sister Afia acknowledged that Wilf was a strong participant in the UN um, conference on the elimination of all forms of discrimination in Durban in 2001. And I do recall that Robin Lloyd represented Will in the delegation there, along with Cheyenne Moulier, a sister from Vermont. They traveled to Africa. And of course, when September 11th, things were kind of became a little unraveled, but we still kept on with the conference in New York on November 1, and then the State of the Black World Conference in Atlanta in December of 2001. But it's been 21 years since the Durham Declaration. So what do you think is the status of the Durham Declaration, Afia, at this point, from coming out of Durban?
I want to say that the reason that I made it a point to cite call the names of the people that I did is because that they have allowed themselves to become, as I described them, as gatekeepers and collaborators along with the United States and other European countries in the effort to disregard, dismantle, and disband the Durban Declaration and Program of Action, and to, in fact, attempt to substitute the forum in its place. Justin Hansford, from whom I'm demanding an apology, was rude, hostile, and arrogant, and utterly disregarded the work of the global community of 2001 in the formation of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action consensus, dismissing it as having occurred when he was only 16 years old and therefore of little significance. That is a direct quote. So the struggle is to maintain the Durban Declaration and Program of Action at the center of the struggle for the program of action of people of African descent and the Declaration of the Rights of People of African Descent and the related mechanisms that come out of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action, and not to tolerate this mixed blood Swede who attempts to reduce it on reducing the significance of the DDPA by condescendingly saying to the participants that it will be applied, quote unquote, as it's appropriate to people of African descent. People of African descent were at the heart and soul of the development and the consensus of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. And I urge all of you to take it up, to go online, to read it, to read the history of it, and to join us in the campaign of maintaining and advancing it, especially at the upcoming forum meeting in New York, the end of May and 1st of June.
This gives us something to work on because I remember it was on the 10th anniversary of the Durham delegation in the Obama administration. We had a call with Valerie Jarrett and that woman, Samantha Power, and it was lots of folks from the Durban 400, Afia. I don't know if you were on that call, that basically Kali Akuno had connected a lot of us with Valerie Jarrett and Samantha Power, representing the Obama administration. And they told us flat out to our faces why they could not support the Durban delegation and program of action. And they said, and so somebody, an indigenous person from, I think, the American Indian Movement or some comparable organization said, why? And Samantha Power said one word, Israel. I thought I would lose my mind. But Israel tells the United States what to do. And Israel was very upset over the support for the Palestinians at the Durban meeting. And so we should have a webinar somewhere before the meeting in New York on why the Durban delegation, say it again, and program of action.
Declaration. Durban Declaration.
Durban Declaration and Program of Action. Why it is so important. And I think we could probably get, hopefully, Kali Akuna. I know he was at COP27, so he must be feeling okay. So maybe we can get some speakers from the Durban 400. I wasn't able to go in 2001, but I know there were 400 folks from the US that were part of the Durban 400, and lots of folks from the Black Radical Congress. And you were there too, weren't you, Afia?
Yes, I was.
So we can pull together a webinar possibly in February in collaboration with some groups. So I think the Black Liberation Caucus could sign on to it, and we can have why the Durban Declaration and Program of Action is still relevant and important. I would like to see us do that. So let's talk about it. I know you have your meeting. Huh?
That's critical.
Okay,
That's critical.
well, I'm glad you agree. Because we're going to make this video available a little bit more widely if we can reach consensus in our meeting today to make it available to the EDAC and possibly to the National Board of Wealth, in addition to the big list of Black and Indigenous people of color, about 50 people that we send emails to inviting them to this meeting so we can show them what they missed. Well, enjoy your 5 o'clock report back, Afia. I know you have to run on to that, and we will finish the rest of our agenda because we have a hard stop at 5:30. And there's some things we're going to drop from the agenda. Is there anything you want to say to us before you go, Afia?
I would simply say thank you for the opportunity, and the organization of the webinar, keep me in mind. Thank you.
Well, I want you to sign up, so I'll call you and talk to you about that later, because we need you in Greenville, because I know we can build a branch in Greenville. So Afia has to go now, and we're down to 4 people, it looks like. So let's see who we've lost, Joyce. George.
Daryl and Philip was here briefly and then it's gone. That's it.
Well, revisiting the agenda, I think we can quickly probably make this closer to a 1-hour meeting because we're not doing the NCOBA report. We're not doing the membership recruitment thing because Metro Atlanta is not here. And that's a key piece of determining who all of these, as they would say, for list, dead folks on the list that we need to clean up. So we'll leave the list cleanup for the January meeting. And since Shante is not here, George, if you and I can simply plan to co-facilitate, just as we did today, the January 29th meeting. But the one question we need to ask before we close out is everyone here still registered? I shouldn't say still, but is everyone here registered for the AFRICOM webinar on Tuesday? Donna, you and Lucy are registered, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, we've done a 1-hour meeting on this Sunday, so everybody can get back to their activities. And January 29th is the last Sunday in January. We will gather again, and we will, George and I will co-facilitate the meeting. So we will talk with you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.